Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of OTH Sports View. The Buffalo Bills are now 4-2 and riding a 4-game win streak. St. Bonaventure men's basketball team is now only a few short weeks away from opening an anticipated 2016-17 campaign, and we will get to those items shortly. But before that, it's Big 30 playoff football. Both New York teams that these guys cover, Olean High and Franklinville-Ellicottville, have been firmly, obviously, in for a while. They're both hosting playoff games this week. Allegheny Limestone in Section 6 made it and is on the road. Bolivar-Richburg and Cuba-Rushford in Section 5 are both in as well and on the road this week. We'll start, though, with the two teams that you guys cover. First with Olean High. Sean, a pretty straightforward victory on Friday to close the season, but the significance there is completing the undefeated regular year, getting that victory over Salamanca to go to 7-0. What an accomplishment that is for Olean High. How did they put that into perspective after the game?
It's not something you see happen every year at Olean High. First time since 2002. And a couple of weeks ago, I actually looked back through our records, and it's only the 6th undefeated regular season in the last 70 years, which is pretty incredible for them. The thing that was interesting to me, they rolled past Salamanca Friday night, 54-7, and I kind of focused my game story on it. Was there wasn't really a whole heck of a lot of celebration after any Gatorade baths or chest bumps or anything of that nature. I think they're just focused on what's next now, and that's the playoffs, and they really want to get a win in the playoffs, I think, at home. That's Friday night.
Right, and we said first undefeated season since 2002. I remember that team very well. That was my senior year. I've talked about that. The Oilers coach, Bobby Bell, was on that team. Julio Fuentes was the star running back of that team, only as a sophomore. Brandon Kuifert, quarterback. And so here Olean is at that point. Now in the playoffs for the first time since 2011. We talked about last week how at that point, and I think that game might have been against Alden in 2011, they were blown out. It was just kind of a we're happy to be here thing. It seems like it's different this time around. They are the higher seed. They're playing at home. Like you said, there wasn't a whole lot of celebration Friday. I think they're looking forward to what's ahead now.
Yeah, I think a loss would be very disappointing in this game, but I don't think it's going to be easy. As you mentioned, the last time they made the playoffs was against Alden in 2011. That was a 42-6 loss, so it was kind of almost like they didn't even make it, really, to be honest. But this year, Alden's the 6th seed. They were the runner-up in Class B East. They have a 5-2 record, too, so I don't think this is going to be any walk in the park for Olean. Alden's only losses are to the number 1 seed in Class B, Medina, and then a non-league game to Canisius, which is a private school power, number 1 large school in Western New York.
Right.
And they just have that pedigree of winning, too, so I don't think it's going to be easy for Olean.
Right, but certainly I think on a mission to certainly get past this round and then see what they might be capable of. Mm-hmm. Sam, with Franklinville-Ellicottville, we knew that they were playing for either the 2 or the 3. It was, going to be vice versa against Silver Creek Forestville. Mm-hmm. At one point, I check. You're doing the game. Obviously, they're up 20-7. I think towards the end of the third quarter, they end up falling behind, going back up, and then losing at the end. What was just kind of the difference? What happened at the end too?
Well, it was a really entertaining, good game, back and forth. Although for a while, as you said, Franklinville-Ellicottville was up. They were playing, the cliche bend but don't break defense. They were giving up some longish drives, but getting turnovers at the perfect spot. They get a fumble recovery in the end zone. Brock Bleach had about a 50-yard fumble recovery return for a touchdown and an interception just outside the end zone to really keep Silver Creek Forestville off the board or relatively low to 7, then 14 points.
Right.
But eventually they kind of broke in this game because they finished with about 400 yards. Silver Creek Forestville did 200 through the air, 200 rushing alone for Billy Siders, their lead running back, who had LaShawn McCoy yesterday, they were just leaning on him, and as the game went along, he was getting bigger and bigger gashes through the defense, and there were some injuries on the Franklinville-Ellicottville side that I think complicated things, stopping the run. So, we get to the fourth quarter, there are 3 lead changes in the last 3.5 minutes, basically. Silver Creek goes up with about 3.5 to go, and then Brock Bleacha answers with a 50-some yard pass to Sam Erickson, which is a pretty spectacular play. But then Silver Creek answers with about a 3-minute drive. They score with 30 seconds left. Chris Williams about a 55-yard catch and run, and that ended up being the winner in a pretty entertaining classic game.
Right, pretty exciting game, one that leaves now Silver Creek in the 2 spot, Franklinville in the 3. They're a little banged up going into the playoffs, still a home playoff game on Friday night against number 6 Frewsburg. Mm-hmm. What does that mean for Franklinville going into this game?
Well, I think they should certainly be favored going into this game, but the injuries and the fact that Frewsburg actually played them to a pretty decent game the first time around. They led at the start of the fourth quarter before Franklinville-Ellicottville had 2 touchdowns to win by about 11, 12 points. I think maybe you should expect that kind of competitive game. That's how it was when they played in the regular season last year, but then the Titans had a much better performance when they saw them again at Ralph Wilson Stadium for the sectional championship. I think it's certainly a tougher game than they would have had as the 2 seed. Yeah.
Right.
But in the long run, if they take care of business this Friday, what it means is they're going to have to go on the road to Silver Creek in a week.
Right, instead of getting that game at home.
Instead of getting a home game, which obviously you would always rather have in the playoffs in the second round.
And no matter who comes out of that group, obviously they're going to have to take on likely a Maple Grove powerhouse Maple Grove team that seems to have the look of a state championship caliber team. So that's going to be the challenge for whoever's playing them.
No one's really been able to touch Maple Grove. Franklinville-Ellicottville, I think, did an admirable job for about a quarter and a half, close to the full first half, but then they just kind of wore on them, and eventually it ended up being about a 30-point game.
Right. So that's going to be the challenge for any team coming out of Class D. Going to Class C real quick, and this was, I think, a little bit of a surprise to me anyway. Allegheny Limestone getting in. They were 1-5 going into that last week of the season, so certainly they needed to win no matter what.
Yes.
And they got that win over Chautauqua Lake to finish 2-5, but 2-3 in the division, and in that tiebreaker scenario where they come out and not only are they in the playoffs, but they're actually, not the bottom
last team
seed.
Yeah, they won Friday night at Chautauqua Lake to force a 3-way tie for third, and they won the tiebreaker. They needed to go and win by at least 9 points, and Paul Furlong's team did the job, really, and I think it sounded like they went there on the mission just to come out by at least 9.
Right, so they knew going into that game that they had to win. They not just win, but win by 9 or more. Did they talk about that?
Yeah, that was really their best chance to make it. There was another scenario that could have gotten them in, but they needed to win regardless, and they did. They took care of business.
Right. And Allegheny Limestone, certainly a team that struggled throughout the year, as we said, at 1-5. I don't think they didn't really register a whole lot on our radar. We haven't talked about them a whole lot on this show because of some of those struggles, but this is a team that in week 1, was leading Olean High at halftime, and we've talked about Olean High being as good as they are this year. They had a triple overtime loss to
Cassadaga Valley Faulkner, and that was in week 3, and dropped them to 0-3, and I think that's kind of where they kind of went off our radar, because that was just a huge disappointment for them. It was actually a team that they finished tied with. Probably a game they should have had.
Right. And then touching quickly on Section 5, as we said, Bolivar Richburg and Cuba Rushford, they were both firmly in even before their games this past week. It was just a matter of where they were going to be. Bolivar Richburg lost to Avon, but did end up at the number 5 seed, and they'll be at C.G. Finney North Star on Saturday. Cuba Rushford won over the weekend pretty easily over Geneseo. They're the number 6 seed after losing to head-to-head matchup with Bolivar Richburg. And they'll be at Red Jacket on Saturday as well. And one thing we talked about, we're a little unsure of what to make of those matchups because there's no common games between those two teams. They're in two separate Class D leagues. It seems like in recent years that other Class D league has maybe had a little bit better competition, and so we think maybe some tough games for those teams this weekend.
I think that's kind of what's exciting about this time of the year. There's a lot of mystery about how these teams will stack up against each other. Much different than, I think, in Section 6 in Class D, where everybody plays everybody during the year, and it would be a lot easier filling out a bracket in Section 6, I think. But just going on the road, I think it's difficult to beat those teams on the road. Just they've had a lot of success in Section 5, so we'll see what happens.
Right. And we'll touch quickly down in Pennsylvania. There's still, I think, 2 weeks remaining in the regular season, but some stuff's starting to shape up there. This past weekend in the north, the big game was between Coudersport and Ottawa Eldred. Those were the two unbeaten teams in the north at the time at 3-0, so the winner there was going to take control. I think I probably thought, and maybe others thought, that Coudersport would have been the favorite to win that game the way they had been playing, but it was Ottawa Eldred that comes out on top in that one to take control, which is just a huge win for Nick LaBelle in that group. Ottawa Eldred hasn't had a whole lot of football success in their entire time as a program, and now is one win away. Basically, they play Smethport on Friday and can clinch the North, I believe, with that win over Smethport. But we'll see how things ultimately shake out there. Kane's still in pretty good control in the South. But we'll be back next week. By that point, we'll know what happened with Olean High. We'll know what happened with Franklinville-Ellicottville. And like we said, eventually we will be getting to the Buffalo Bills and St. Bonaventure men's basketball team. In the meantime, I'm JP Butler for Sean Campbell and Sam Wilson. I'm reminding you to please have your pets. Your pet. Thanks for watching.